Hey guys, Chris here. Today I'm in Minnesota. I grew up here, and I have a story about a father and a son who are living in remote West Virginia, and there they go into the forest searching for ginseng, which is an herbal root, and they have a series of events happen to them that turns out to be very terrifying and frightening for them. That's next. All right, so we got our beer for today is a Grain Belt Premium American Lager, and that is a local Minnesota beer from New Ulm, Minnesota, so that is pretty fun. I grew up hiking in these woods right here. This is called Elm Creek Park Reserve, kind of near where I grew up in Maple Grove, Minnesota here. And I am here for a few days, and I thought, what a great place to do today's video. So, a little chilly today. It's about maybe 29, 30. It's a little bit below freezing, but not enough to stop me from having a Grain Belt beer. This beer's been around these parts for a long time. So, okay, so today's story takes place in West Virginia, near a small town, not in the town, but outside of the town, in the mountains, remote West Virginia, and this town is called Copperston. There was a man there named Steve. He liked hunting, fishing, spent his whole life in rural, remote West Virginia. And this particular time, he took his son Alex with him, and they went up near this community called Copperston. And that part of the state, and a lot of West Virginia, is very rugged topography. And there's mountains, a lot of V-shaped valleys and mountain ridges just running in different directions. And for years, he had gone up this particular drainage and went up in this side slope on this mountain and would hunt for ginseng, which is an herbal root, has health benefits to it. And he took his son along that day, and he decided he wanted to go up this ridge and come down the other side. It was going to be a lot more remote, a lot better chance of finding this root. And he figured it was probably going to be more moisture on that side, kind of a north-northwest slope to it. Gets to the top, him and Alex, and they're dropping down, and sure enough, the canopy is really thick, summer of 2015, and it's really dark in there. Not dark enough they can't see. They can see pretty well once their eyes adjust it. And they noticed ferns, mushrooms, moss on the trees, kind of like the trees right behind me here. And just a way more remote feel to the whole place. And he thought this would be a great place to do their hunting. They're going down this slope, heading for the next bottom of the next valley, and they heard somewhere in the forest, they couldn't identify where it was, but this low-toned, almost like laughter. And it echoed through the forest. Really creepy. And it wasn't laughter per se, but it sounded like laughter. And sometimes there's birds that kind of have a sound that's like they're laughing. They heard this 5 or 6 times. And a little concerning because Steve couldn't identify exactly what it was. And he knew all the animals. He just grew up there grew up in rural, remote West Virginia. Great state. I'm going to go there someday. And Steve at this point was just going to dismiss it as probably some kind of a bird. And right after that, just moments later, they heard this deep growl. And so the bird theory went out the window. And there's this deep growl, and his first thought was, okay, it's a predator. It didn't sound like a bear, but his first thought was, well, I'm going to take bear precautions. So he said out loud, "Hey bear, hey bear, we're here. Hey, we're here." That kind of thing to let the predator know, whatever it was, that there's people about. And you don't want any confrontation with wildlife, particularly predators, if you can avoid it. Surprising them or coming into their territory, and then there's a face-to-face confrontation. Gives them a chance to move away. And then just moments after that, it was silent again. And they couldn't, again, identify where it was. They're in this top of this ridge working their way down, and so the echoes and the sounds, it was just hard to identify where things were coming from. But they heard this, what sounded like a siren, like an ambulance siren. Low to high to low again. Really loud though. Really loud. Kind of a kind of like that. And just, it startled them. Startled both of them. It was so loud, and they couldn't see where it was coming from. And at this point, Steve remembered he's got his gun with him. Felt good about that. And then right after that, they heard this kind of a guttural, almost a grungy sound, kind of a huff sound. Something like that. And so they knew there was something about probably watching them, couldn't identify it. Alex was scared at this point. Steve was concerned but not scared. And it reminded Alex, it's okay, we're going to be fine. I have a Glock 21 SF. Pretty powerful handgun. He felt he could handle just about anything in the forest that he'd be confronted with. And he was kind of a hardcore outdoorsman. And so he was going to continue to do what they came to do, and he wasn't going to let this sound and this whatever deter him, even though his son was very scared. And I don't know if I would have done that with my kids. I think we've heard enough. Something doesn't want us here, let's leave, but that's me. And just then, suddenly, about 60 feet down the slope, they saw the tops of these trees, hickory, beech, maple trees, 6-inch round, 8-inch, 12-inch, larger, start shaking, swaying back and forth, and then shaking violently, and then banging into each other. Just crazy. And they're upslope watching this down the slope, and then suddenly it stops, and they hear footsteps going through the forest, loud kind of stomping, and it went to the right, and then another group of trees started shaking and violently banging into each other, leaves falling off, branches falling out of the tree. And Steve noticed there was no wind, zero wind, and then it happened again. And then this time they could see something moving through the brush, kind of like behind me here. There's definitely some thick brush here when it's summer, but you could see things moving. If it was like a deer or something running, you could catch glimpses of it and kind of figure out what it is. And they saw this creature 6 to 7 feet tall, upright, running on 2 feet, really fast, going through the brush, and it went over to another group of trees and just grabbed it and started shaking it and violently shaking the trees. And it would always stay on the back side of the tree, the downslope, so it would be between, the tree would be between Steve and Alex and this thing, and it was like concealing itself. Then it ran again to another group of trees, just shaking them violently, and then this time, they heard this loud crack sound. And just moments later, this tree came crashing down really loud. Just startled them. This whole thing is playing out in just a couple of minutes. And then they heard the footsteps again. They couldn't see it again. The brush was really thick, but they saw this tree shake, and then it pulled down slope and then cracked and then crashed and fell. Crazy. And then happened a third time, 3 times, and after the third time, the tree crashes really loud, echoing out throughout the forest. And then they hear the footsteps move away a little quieter through the forest and down slope and to the right. And at this point, Steve was really startled. Alex is in tears. He's got tears in his eyes. He's totally afraid. Steve, being kind of a hardcore outdoorsman, he said, we're going to go check this out, and then we're going to get out of here, but I got to see what happened down here. Alex didn't feel like he had any say in it, any choice in it. He wasn't going to stay by himself, so he went with his dad. They went down the slope, got through the brush, and they could see clearly the first tree was broke over, was down, broke at the trunk, and down slope, facing down slope. Like whatever it was came up the backside and rocked it, and pulled it down the slope. And then they went off to their right, and they found the other tree, same thing, broke off. It wasn't uprooted, it was just broke off and down slope. And then a third tree, and they could see the canopy and the broken branches spread out. And they're looking at this, looking around, it's quiet. And then Steve noticed out of his peripheral vision, out of his right eye, some movement off to the right. A little bit up the slope now, in a kind of a darker area where there was a large tree and some smaller trees behind it, and then what looked like a stump. A reddish brown, dark brown tree stump sitting there. And he stared at it for a moment, and then whatever this tree stump was, it looked like it got up and moved over and went behind the dark tree next to it and squatted back down again. So now it was halfway behind this dark tree, and Steve was startled to see this thing move. And he realized that's whatever this was, probably a Sasquatch. And now it was just staring at them. Upslope, just a little bit, dark and shadowy in there. And hadn't he noticed the movement in there, and then seen it get up and move, he would have thought it was just a tree stump. And he's looking at it again, it was motionless. And he's staring right at it. And it's not moving, it looks just like a tree stump. And he's realizing whatever it was now is just staring at them. And they could feel it. They could feel it staring at them. And he thought, okay, this is really the time to go. And he said, Alex, we're getting out of here. We're going to get up the ridge, come down the other side, and get out of here. Alex was relieved. They were pretty frightened. Their thing is just 45, 50 feet away, staring at them. And he thought, good time to leave. He remembered in his backpack he had a PBJ sandwich, peanut butter and jelly. Pulls the pack off really quick, holds it up, pretty gutsy guy. Holds it up and he said, this is for you, I respect you, this is your home, and we are leaving. And he set it on a log right in front of him. And they turned and left. Went back up the slope, came down the other side, went home. And they just realized he had never seen anything like this, never heard anything like this. His son was afraid of the woods, going into the forest, at least for a while. He remembered that he went back several times after that, heard strange sounds, but never had an incident anywhere near like that. He did find some tree trunks on a slope, on that same slope. Below the tree trunks, the ground was dug out, 1.5 feet, 2 feet deep, kind of a long trench next to this tree trunk. Could be a bear, he didn't know. Thought that was interesting. He learned later that there was a hunting club that was going to lease this land. And he was concerned for this creature that he experienced and felt like he almost discovered, because he actually saw it. And he felt like these people didn't respect nature and felt that they were above it. And he didn't think that would be good for whatever these animals were that were living on this dark forest in West Virginia. And that is our story for today, which is a pretty cold day. My hand is losing feeling in my hand. This is great though. I grew up in these woods. In the 70s, 80s, we did a lot of hiking here as kids. We would come out here throughout the year. We would snowshoe out here, ride our bikes out here, hike out here. And I got a lot of memories here. So this is really fun for me to come back here. Great forest we have here. There's several lakes in this county park, Elm Creek Park Reserve, Minnesota. So, all right, you guys, I got to get back to things. And I got to hike out of here. I don't have to hike out after night, so that's good, after dark. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys as always. If you like these stories about the strange, unexplained, and things that go bump in the night, please like and subscribe. I get a lot of views that are outside of YouTube, and I don't get the subscriptions for those. So if you want to subscribe, that would be great. That would help me to keep this going. I've been going every Sunday since March. I'm actually kind of proud of that. I've hit every Sunday, and it's been close calls to make it or not make it, but I've done it, so. Okay, we'll see you guys next time. As always, keep hiking.